1983. This is the second year of G.I. Joe, and the year when they discarded the dress code, and you can wear whatever you want.
Yo, Joe!
This is also the year where I think G.I. Joe really hits his stride. It really gets its character, right? The first year of G.I. Joe was everybody was an olive drab except Scarlet and Snake Eyes. We also had only 3 face sculpts. You had receding hair Monkey Face, aka Michael Ironside, Soy Face, and then you had Beard. So those were the 3 faces, and then other than Stalker, Scarlet, and Snake Eyes, that's what you had. In this one now, in this year, everybody gets their own head sculpt. The dress code is out the window. So we're going to go through every action figure from 1983, rank them, and you're probably not going to be surprised at who is number 1. And then we're going to go into a separate video. We're going to do the vehicles, which is just like, this is a great year for vehicles. Join me for this. I always love to do these rankings. What's great about a ranking is it takes the worst to the best. It gives you a sort of non-linear tour of everything that we got back in the day. Now, there's not a lot of bad here, or actually no bad. For the most part, I'm not going to be making fun. It's all going to be a love fest. But let's go into the figures ranked. You tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd love talking to you in the comments. Let me know. Okay, and at the very bottom of the list, we have Grunt version 2. And the reason why I put Grunt version 2 on the list is because it's just another version of Grunt. And so who cares? He's pretty generic. He has monkey face, receding hairline monkey face, and he's in tan pants. And he came with the gliders of sadness. So this is the thing. The gliders. If you got that glider for your birthday, the person who bought it for you only bought tears. Because within 30 minutes of playing with the glider of sadness, it broke in half. And so that Grunt figure gets the bottom of the barrel in this very great year for bringing so much sadness. Next in line to the Grunt is the Cobra Viper pilot, and this is the glider of sadness Cobra version. And the reason certainly why it wasn't good is the glider sucks so much. And you basically got the same thing. You had him before. He's just like a variation of Cobra. What's great about that, though, is now you've got another Cobra. And so you're troop building, which I think was very rare to do back in the day. I don't know if anybody troop built. I had very few doubles of soldiers. It was kind of hard to, you just sort of doubled them in your head. You pretended there was 20 of them when there was only one. Now I do tend to buy, sometimes I bought like 4 bats, and I bought a couple of Crimson Guardsmen. I bought a few ninjas. I sort of feel like the need to troop build, because it was something that I think the reason why we need to troop build, I don't know if you troop build right now with your G.I. Joe Classified fans, the reason why we troop build is because we couldn't when we were kids. Because if you ask your mom, hey, I got that guy, I want another one, she'd be like, you have him already. Why would you want another one? Wouldn't you want a new guy? And you would always pick the new guy. So you never troop built. I don't know anybody who troop built as a kid, and that's why we're repressed in troop building today. Next in line, we have Tripwire. And I shit on Tripwire regularly because Tripwire is just not that exciting, frankly. Why is he not exciting? In theory, he should be really exciting. He's an EOD. He is the Hurt Locker. He's a guy who goes in and defuses bombs and is awesome. But the problem for me is anytime you give a guy, a non-gun or a non-weapon, right? Like, so for me, like, the ideal for me when you get a G.I. Joe, you let me know how you felt. But for me is like, number 1 is you came with a melee weapon. A character that came with a weapon that was not a gun. A sword, a hammer like Toll Booth, a sword, a machete, a knife, anything like that. In addition to a gun, I was most excited about you. If you came with a gun, I was like, okay, cool, that makes sense because you're going to battle, you get a gun or a rocket launcher or whatever. If you came with something that was not a gun or a melee weapon, I was like, okay, you die first because you're going into battle not equipped. So Tripwire came with a mine detector, which to me always makes me think of that old guy on the beach who's looking for change and shit. It's not sexy, it's not interesting. I don't know if you did this, but I did this. So the backpack, because he had to have some offensive weapon. So what I would have him do is he would have him take the mines from his backpack and like fling them like Tron discs and just explode in people's face. Stupid. Doesn't make any sense. But that's what he did. You had to. And then you make him hit people with this mine detector. But he was also tripped a lot and he looked goofy. I don't know. Not my favorite. Next in line, we have Grand Slam version 2. This is great. Grand Slam, another version. This guy had the silver on him, so he looked pretty cool. I just think the design of Grand Slam and Flash is so great. With the silver reflecting material to keep the burns from their either lasers or jetpack, from burning them, whatever it is. That always looked really good, and they were some of the standout figures of the first year. Next in line, we have the Hiss Tank Driver, and this is just has an absolutely great aesthetic, really great and unique look to him. This figure decked out all in red, just had a very cool sci-fi look, and of course, as the pilot of the Hiss Tank, he was, one of the best. Next in line, we have a character that I love, a character that I have a lot of affection for, but for a very specific reason, I think the figure kind of sucks. And this is Cover Girl. And the idea of Cover Girl, of course, is that she's called a Cover Girl because she is a model who then fixes tanks and is a mechanic and a gearhead and also can drive a tank and shoot missiles up your ass. Such a cool idea, it's such a cool concept, great name, everything about her is great, but the figure is so ugly. It's the most butterface figure ever. I love that she's supposed to be a supermodel. I know they were struggling trying to get the female sculpts right, because you of course want to have, I think in the first Scarlet looks great, but she doesn't have the ponytail because they couldn't do it. And then we get the Baroness. We figure out, you can have molded hair. They figure out how to do it. She looks good. But we have Cover Girl. Poor Cover Girl, man. She looks just not a good face sculpt at all. Okay, next in line we have Airborne. Again, there's really not much bad here in this year, or any really bad. All of it's pretty good. And Airborne was a great figure. What I love about Airborne, came with the M16 with a bayonet on the end of it, which was very, very fun. And he sort of looked a little different. The design of his military, he was one where he looked military-ish, but he isn't really a military guy. I don't recognize it as any particular uniform of any real military. So they're playing around with colors, and they're playing around with style, and they're this is why this is the no dress code year, because they're getting away from the green drab. They know they've got to fantasy this shit up and make it look interesting, and he does have an interesting aesthetic. What I really love about him is he's the co-pilot of the Dragonfly, and he's a Native American. For me, one thing that I think is hinted at in the comic book is because he's a Native American, he has a relationship with Spirit. Spirit's this more traditional, obsessed with the shamanism of his culture. And for me, Airborne was just like a regular dude. He just happened to be Native American. So the clash of the culture of Spirit and Airborne was a great storytelling tool and an idea that could be used. And I liked sometimes Spirit sort of bring him in a little bit, sort of teach him about his culture. That was kind of fun. Next in line, we have Wild Bill, and I love this character so much. He's such a great, fun character. To me, he was wild. He was kind of crazy. The Dragonfly is one of my favorite vehicles of all time. So he was just a cowboy, and then you had, of course, cowboy and Native American. So he's got his Native American friend in the back seat as his co-pilot. It's just a great, little team flying into battle. Airborne could pop out of this back and jump down, parachute down. And they were a good team. Next in line, we have Duke. And I've never been the biggest Duke fan. I prefer Flint. I know there's people who love Duke and are obsessed with Duke. And Duke is your main guy. And I get it. He was the main guy in the cartoon. I got tired of Duke at one point and decided he's not my guy. Flint's my guy. But ultimately, one, it was a mail order figure, and any mail order thing was the best thing ever, because you get your little proofs of purchase, you get your whatever dollar for postage, whatever you had to put in the mail, and then you just waited and you thought about it every day until it came. You just waited obsessively, and you prayed that it was going to be there, and you opened the mailbox, and you were like, open the mailbox, and you're like, fuck, it wasn't there, fuck. Every day for like a month. And then finally you open up and you're like, it's there, I got something in the mail. Now I get shit in the mail every day. It's not as exciting. I'm still excited when I get an Amazon package, but it's just not quite the same. So I'm going to give this Duke higher than I would because of that mail order experience. Next in line, we have Ace, and what a great figure this was. Of course, it came with the Sky Striker. But what's great here is he had this little removable glass helmet, and underneath that helmet, he had what is I call Soy Face, which was one of the first runs, but he got red hair, so he's a ginger, so whatever. But he had this weird kind of Michelin Man suit thing going on, but it was always fun to have the glass because you could smash the glass. And you also had in the Sky Striker, you had a parachutes that you could toss them up in the air. It was so much fun. Just a great figure in possibly one of the greatest vehicles of all time. Next we have Torpedo. Torpedo is a Navy SEAL, and I just love this figure so much for a bunch of reasons. One, he came with anything that was like a little different, just wasn't your standard gun. He came with a spear gun, which ultimately, now that I think about it, kind of sucks because you shoot one spear and then you go home. I mean, you're kind of out of things to do. But for me, it was like great just to think of him, spearing somebody in the head. It just had a gruesomeness to it that a gun didn't seem to have, and it just gave you a little variety. But what I also love about Torpedo is his backpack. So in the backpack, we have two little, looks like torpedoes, which my guess was on his backpack. He's got a little trigger somewhere on his body, which he can hit the trigger and missiles fire off his backpack and explode and blow shit up. And he was our first underwater guy. This is another thing that's great about this year, and is in this year we're getting G.I. Joes in new habitats, right? In the snow, in the sea, in the air, and we're seeing G.I. Joe expand where it's playing. So really, I think this is the year G.I. Joe becomes G.I. Joe. I think the first year was, I still have a lot of affection for that first year, and those guys in green with the 3 head sculpts. They felt more like army men, and then in the second year they become wild, and it starts to go wild, and you see the potential of how weird it can get, and it just gets so exciting and so fun. I just remember being just absolutely falling in love with this second line. I was in love with the first line too, obviously, clearly, but the second line was really where it really changed. Next in line we have Doc. And Doc was such a fun character. One, we didn't have a medic, and so it was great to imagine everybody getting wounded and Doc having to patch him up. But it's the accessories that make Doc such a great character. He had a stretcher, so you could fit in the hands of G.I. Joes. You have a stretcher, anybody's hurt, then Doc is able to transport them from place to place. That was so much fun. Then he also had this giant ass flare gun, which actually was weird because a flare gun is usually a little pistol. You carrying around just that flare, but of course you use the flare gun to kill people all the time. So for me, the flare gun was almost like a rocket launcher, but I would shoot that flare in some cobra's face, and his face would light off. But the fun of Doc is just the imaginative play, the injuries, Doc running in, rescuing people, pulling them out. I was really sad when Doc died in the comic book. I feel like it was unnecessary, and although it was cool for some people to die, I wished it had been other characters that didn't matter so much, because to me he's pretty much main cast. He's or secondary main cast, I would say. I would put him in. He's really important, and it's sad to lose him. Now we're getting into the just absolute icons of the list. And at number 4, we have Gung Ho. And Gung Ho is one of my favorite G.I. Joe characters of all time. I love Gung Ho. One, because he's just this crazy Cajun. He's just this bizarre Marine. What cemented Gung Ho for me, though, is if you're not a comic book guy, what did it is the first time we see Gung Ho is in an issue in which they're in Antarctica, right? And this is where we meet Doc and Gung Ho and Snow Job and a bunch of the characters. But in this issue, what's really funny is Gung Ho is just walking around shirtless and in Antarctica. He doesn't give a shit. He's absolutely insane. He rushes into battle without thinking, kicks the shit out of everybody, blows shit up. And then he's constantly talking to Snake Eyes, even though Snake Eyes can't respond. And he's just a crazy man. And so for me, that's what Gung Ho is. Gung Ho is like a big, giant brute who's just absolutely kind of crazy and unpredictable. One of my favorite characters of all time. Next in line, we have Major Blood. And Major Blood, again, this is another mail away. It was such an exciting mail away that you could get Major Blood. One of the best villains of all time. And what I love about Major Blood is, he's sort of... he's like the B-list villain. He's not A-list. He's not Destro, Baroness, Zartan. But he's definitely the second one below. He's one of the most important villains in Cobra. He's the servant of Cobra Commander. He goes out and does his bidding. But I love the idea that he's this poet. He writes really bad poetry. He rhymes Uzi with whatever. But what really sort of sold us, first of all, he has a rocket launcher pistol and a metal robot arm, which is just bizarre. He's good to kind of clothesline people with that metal robot arm. Is pretty cool. You can just smash somebody's head open with it. The idea that he's got a robot arm is really fun. He had a great head sculpt, a really good, great look to him, and just really fun to imagine this sort of secondary Cobra villain. But my number 2 figure is Snow Job. And why do I love Snow Job so much? Well, because he came with skis. How fun was it to imagine Snow Job battling down a giant hill, mountain in the snow, being chased by snow serpents on his skis. He's firing. He's an expert marksman, so he's firing his XLMR a rifle, taking out snow serpents as he skis down this mountain expertly. He's got his ski poles, which he can smack and smash into people, use as weapons, and so much fun. Also love the character too, because he is, he likes to play pranks on people. He's a Snow Job. He'll the Snow Job being that. It's not what you think it is. I think you think something dirty. That's not what it means. Snow Job basically means he's a con artist, and he does it mostly for fun. He's a fairly kind guy, but he Snow Jobs you. He cons you into things. The thing he cons the first time we see him in this issue of G.I. Joe, the comic, is he's conning and he's trying to get I forget who it was, maybe Clutch, to beg to go out with Gung Ho's sister, and it turns out she's 5 years old. So there's just this moment at the end where he's like, I'm fucking with you the whole time. He's just fucking with them. That's one thing that we love about G.I. Joe, is that these guys are fucking with each other all the time. They're just messing with each other. They're all they're boys, they're fun, and girls, right? And they got an energy, an attitude. They're screwing with each other all the time. They're busting balls. They're which I think is how most military guys are. Most guys are, I guess, and some women, but we just bust each other's chops. That's what we do. A lot of my women friends too. We bust each other's chops. That's why we're friends. That's the good fun of it, and you're seeing that with Snow Job and Gung Ho and all these guys. That camaraderie of all right, you can take a joke. Let me push it and see how far you can take it. But my number 1 figure is not going to be a surprise. It is Destro, of course. The shock to me of seeing this metal-headed dude with wrist rockets and this just carrying a little suitcase that you open up and had any number of unimaginable weapons in was so exciting. He just was such an incredible villain. And then having these beryllium steel hands, so I'm having him pound people, breaking helmets open with his fist, headbutting people, and then just the aesthetics of him, this open chest. He's just a guy who loves, money, he loves sex, he loves the finer things in life. It's just communicated by this, so much communicated by this figure. I did make a video exploring Destro in a great detail. This is the beginning of a series where I explore characters and go through everything about them and every single version of the character, and the first was Destro, and you can watch that one right here.